number is for the darkest of dark locations, and if the radiant is straight above your head. It's not going to be, and you don't live in the darkest of dark. 80% of Americans live in urban or suburban settings, so you're probably going to see about 30 to 60 per hour, which is still pretty awesome when you think about it. That's more than a normal night. So this is one I would highly recommend. If you got some property out in the country, or you got a great spot in your yard and you can let your eyes adjust, this is one to go out and check out, Tim, because this is going to be a really good meteor shower on Saturday night into Sunday morning.
So Saturday night, I'm thinking about our cloud cover here.
You're like,
it seems like we have a good chance to get a view. I wouldn't guarantee that it's cloud free, though. I think that'll be something that we watch a little nervously, I would guess. But there probably will be a good view. And Saturday night, this is before the bitter cold slides in. So you wouldn't want to be doing this Sunday night at all.
No, for sure.
But Saturday night, you might actually have temperatures that are still in the 40s.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because there's many a Geminid meteor shower, because it's always here in early to mid-December, that I've been out in the country freezing my you-know-what off, trying to look at meteors. So it is usually brutally cold. Yeah, I think the cool thing about the clouds, Tim, is, I think oftentimes people think any clouds at all is a bad thing. Remember, this will be almost the entire sky. You don't have to look at a specific spot. And if there's clouds in one part of the sky, you can still get breaks where you can see meteors. So I think totally worth it. And if you're like me, a good trick, if you got a camera that can do long exposure time lapses, just stick the camera out there and let it do the work, and go stay inside and go back and look at your pictures later and see if you caught something. I think that's what I'm going to do this year, is take my smart telescope, just aim it in the sky and try to see if I catch anything. But definitely worth a look this weekend. And as you mentioned, before the cold air moves in on Sunday. We got 1 minute left, Tim. Real quickly, any tips you want to give your viewers and followers about the possible light snow and the Arctic blast heading our way this weekend?
Yeah, tomorrow morning, just kind of, wake up and see what you got going on out there. I would trust your eyes if it looks like it's snowing. You've got some snow up that way. I turn on the morning show as well. They'll have kind of a look at the radar tomorrow morning and get you up to speed. And then as far as the weekend, just make sure you know where all your gloves and hats and mittens are, because you're going to need those on Monday. If you haven't used them yet, you're a tough guy. Good for you. But you've got to use them, I think, on Monday morning if you're out and about, because I'll need them too.
Yeah. Make sure you check on your car. Make sure it's ready to go, because I think it's going to be a shock to your vehicle as well. Thanks for joining us tonight. We'll be back tomorrow, but we got more news coming up after the break. Stick around.
All right, welcome folks to Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. We're starting here with some breaking news on a story that we've been following throughout the day today. Of course, we know we reported for you in our early evening newscast. The community is reflecting and reacting tonight after news that the former co-owner at this point of Sycamore Brewing has been arrested, accused of breaking into a home and statutory rape of a 13-year-old girl. We just got brand new information from the Stanley County Sheriff's Office, and they kind of go into more detail on what they say took place in this specific encounter, and when they got a call and when authorities were first alerted that something was not right with the situation. So they say in a press release sent to us just moments ago that shortly before midnight last night, we'll get back to the mugshot, on December 10th, so that was yesterday, the Stanley County Sheriff's Office responded to a 911 call in Stanfield, North Carolina. They say the 911 call was reporting that an adult male, an unknown male, had been located inside a 13-year-old girl's bedroom by her parents. The sheriff's office goes on to say the man was completely undressed and was located in a nearby vehicle. They ended up detaining him. They say that man is this man you see right now, 44-year-old Justin Brigham. We're seeing some of the charges, which we knew already today and had reported for you. First-degree burglary, statutory rape of a child by an adult, indecent liberties with a child. He did have an initial appearance in district court in Stanley County, bond set at $10 million. He's currently being held at the Stanley County Detention Center. We're also told that the sheriff's office, with assistance from CMPD, executed a search warrant today at an address in Charlotte as part of the investigation. They did not specify what address that might be, but some location in Charlotte they looked into, executed a search warrant as part of this investigation. They do go on to conclude here that if you know anything about this case, to contact them, Stanley County Sheriff's Office. An email address, cid@stanleycountync.gov, cid@stanleycountync.gov. But once again, just a few more layers coming together on these rape accusations against a former now co-owner of Sycamore Brewing. We say former because that statement that we shared, Sean, we can pull that up now. This was the statement that Sycamore Brewing itself put out just moments after this news broke, and this was posted on Instagram. You can see we've snapshot it and put it here on your screen. To our employees, customers, and partners, I'm devastated by the charges against Justin and the pain this has inflicted on our family and others. Effective immediately, I'm assuming full leadership of the company. Justin is divesting all of his interest and will have no further involvement. Our team remains my highest priority as a mom and a business owner. So that is from Sarah Taylor, now the full owner of Sycamore Brewing. And so certainly a case we'll continue to follow for you here on Live Impact News. Meantime, we mentioned there is reaction from the community tonight. Our Walker Lawson has been speaking with folks and even heard that there are some restaurants or bars that might not be using Sycamore Brewing beer, at least in the near term, because of this news. Let's go ahead and listen in to how the community is reacting. Here's Walker's piece tonight.
It was a pit in my stomach. I was so sick.
For many in South End, the news is disturbing and hard to process. Arrest warrants obtained by WCNC Charlotte from the Stanley County Sheriff's Office lay out the accusations. Investigators say 44-year-old Justin Brigham broke into a home and raped a 13-year-old girl on Wednesday. He was arrested Thursday, appearing in court this morning, where a judge set bond at $10 million. And the fallout was almost immediate. Not long after news broke, his wife and Sycamore's co-owner posted a statement on Instagram that read in part, "To our employees, customers, and partners, I'm devastated by the charges against Justin and the pain this has inflicted on our family and others. Effective immediately, I am assuming full leadership of the company. Justin is divesting all of his interests and will have no further involvement." Regulars of Sycamore say they have no plans to return.
I think they definitely should have new ownership. I just don't really know how you could come back from something like this.
All right, folks. And of course, as we mentioned, we will follow all the latest with this case. We do have a full article online on WCNC.com. And for folks who have our mobile app, the WCNC Charlotte mobile app, we just updated our web story there. So you have all of the information in one place. And we'll be hopping in throughout the rest of the next 2 hours together here on Live Impact with new updates and also diving deeper into the story. Meantime, here, we do want to talk about another big story coming out of our area and rising to the national level, if you will, as far as attention on this and on the sports world as well. So for folks who haven't been following along, we just had this big news about that NASCAR settlement of the federal antitrust case. And this was in response to an antitrust lawsuit with 2 racing teams, including one that is co-owned by Michael Jordan. And so we've been diving into that throughout the evening. We do want to talk about the reaction first off. So Michael Jordan remarked on the settlement news shortly afterwards, just outside of court. And let's take a listen to that. We'll dive back in with some more insights from a reporter who's been covering this trial at length.
I mean, like 2 competitors, obviously we're trying to get as much done in each other's favor, but I think, collectively, and I don't think Jim was any opposite of me, was the fans has always been the best, solution to this whole process and to the sport itself. The only way that, and I've said this from day one, the only way this sport is going to grow is we have to find some synergy between the 2 entities, and I think we've gotten to that point. Unfortunately, it took 16 months to get here, but I think, level heads have got us to this point to where we can actually work together and grow the sport. I'm very proud about that, and I think Jim feels the same.
Jim? I do feel the same. We can get back to focusing on what we really love, and that's racing. We spend a lot of time, and then not really focused on that so much as we need to be. So I feel like we made a very good decision together, and we have a good opportunity to continue growing the sport. We've got Denny Hamlin getting ready to go for the championship, and we need to focus on what we all love. What was the impetus that made it today and not earlier?
Level heads. In all honesty, when you get to the finish line, sometimes you have to think, not just for yourself, but you got to think about the sport as a whole. And I think both parties got to that point, and we realized that we could have an opportunity to sell this, and we dove in, and we actually did it. Unfortunately, it took us that long, but we got here. That's all that matters.
I mean, do you feel like it was worth it?
Well, I mean, both parties feel like it's worth it because we understand we had to work together. I mean, compromise in every negotiation is one of the toughest things that you can do, and I think that you can say that we both compromise on both of our agendas, and I think we both come to the conclusion that it's better for us.
There's so much family history wrapped up here, not just for you, Mr. France, but also for you, Mr. Jordan. Can you talk about just what it means to you from a legacy point of view?
Well, I grew up watching his father build this sport, and I didn't want to have to tear it down. I don't think he wanted to be torn down, but I think on the calmer circumstances, we actually voiced what our interests may have been, collectively, and at the end of the day, we reached some type of compromise. And to me, that's in every negotiation. That's in every agreement. And I'm very happy we stand on this step to move forward as opposed to moving separate.
What were the other terms of the settlement?
I think that's, guys, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Let's go race.
Okay.
Go to Bubba Gray. Go to Daytona.
Yeah. Everybody show up at the tracks.
All right, so just a bit of that encounter with reporters after the settlement took place. We have Jenna Fryer, Associated Press reporter, joining us tonight here on Live Impact. Jenna, you covered this trial at length, 8 days altogether, but you heard Mr. Jordan alluding to in that chat with reporters shortly afterwards how this was months and months and months of waiting for this. Talk about, I guess, the settlement here and what sort of implications do you think this would have on motorsport, anything at large with the sports world? What sort of impacts do you expect to see and/or do you think could happen here because of this?
Well, I believe that
the settlement was necessary. I think that NASCAR was going to lose the case. It was not going well for them. It was not leaning in their favor at all. And the outcome could have been very bad for NASCAR and the France family if they'd seen it to a jury verdict. So the fact that they settled shows that the France family realized, hey, you know, we need to save our family business and protect this sport. What it's going to mean is what the teams wanted all along, which is number one, permanent charters. And we don't know yet the other terms that were agreed to in the settlement, but I believe that they're going to, that all teams, that even the ones who didn't sue, are going to receive a larger revenue stream, piece of the revenue stream, and they're going to work together to build a healthier, stronger sport. And Michael Jordan said from the very beginning that he wasn't doing this for just 23XI and Front Row Motorsports. He was doing this for all the teams, and ultimately what he achieved is going to be a victory for the 36 chartered teams in NASCAR.
No, I mean, we know that here in Charlotte, and there's so many other cities where I guess you would call it, you know, a NASCAR hub where there's so much interest and there's a lot of folks who are big fans. So we know that people are very much into the sport itself, but might not really dive into the weeds of, you know, the business operations. Could you explain for folks why we had 23XI Racing and Front Row calling for these charters to be made permanent? Is there kind of a way that you could simplify it for folks who might not get the business nuances of this quite yet, but want to learn more about why this was something that these groups wanted?
Yeah, so NASCAR team, the structure in NASCAR, you know, NASCAR was founded in 1948, and it's been owned by the same family, the France family, who founded it, and they privately own the company. And it just has always been this system of, you know, we're in charge. We put on the show, you show up, and you figure out how to make the money to get to the racetrack. And if you don't make it next week, that's on you. And NASCAR had gotten to a point in popularity in the early 2000s where they really exploded. They were making a lot of money, and then it sort of cratered a little bit. And all of a sudden, these teams were bleeding money, and they were relying on outside sponsorship to stay in business. And they felt like this wasn't fair. We're showing up, we're doing all the work to put on your product, and we're not getting an equal piece of the pie. So in 2016, they developed what's called the charter system. It's very similar to the franchise model in other sports. The Carolina Panthers are a franchise. So when David Tepper decides, if he ever does, that he doesn't want to own the Panthers anymore, he has a product that he's got a franchise that he can sell for a large amount of money. The way that the charter system was set up was these were renewable every 7 years, and they were also revocable by NASCAR. So the teams argued in the negotiations for the 2025 agreement, hey, we're still bleeding money. We're still not getting enough of the revenue stream. We need better terms. And they had 4 core pillars that they wanted. One of the very important pillars that they wanted was that the charters become permanent. So that, and another word that you may hear that uses evergreen. And that's sort of a way to skirt around the word permanent that the France family so opposed. But they wanted them to become permanent so that they had an asset that could grow in equity. And when you have an interested buyer, you could charge a lot more money for it because this was something that would never be taken away. Just the way that the Panthers continue to grow in value, the way that the Hornets continue to grow in value, they wanted that very much. And they wanted better terms on the other 3 items, the other 3 pillars that they were fighting for. But that key piece was that they wanted them permanent. NASCAR wouldn't budge on it. They gave the teams their final offer in September of 2024. It came in around 5 o'clock at night during the first weekend of the playoffs. They said, sign this by the end of the day, midnight, or you're going to lose your charters. 13 of the teams, 13 of the organizations, they felt they had no choice, that they were going to go out of business. This was the best deal that they were going to get. They signed it. Michael Jordan said, I'm not signing it. I'm not going to take the deal. And then Front Row Motorsports said that they didn't like the deal either, and they aligned with Michael Jordan. They felt that, let me roll the dice with Michael Jordan. He's a big player. He's got a lot of power. He's got a lot of money to fund this kind of fight. So tiny little Front Row Motorsports joined in on it. Those two teams since September of 2024 have been fighting this fight. We're probably looking at around $100 million in attorney fees between both sides, maybe more. And Michael Jordan went the distance on it. He wouldn't relent. And every day of the 8 days was worse and worse and worse for NASCAR. And when they finally began to present their case on Wednesday, it became, through their first three witnesses, pretty obvious that they weren't trying to fight the antitrust claims. They were more trying to mitigate damages. They were more arguing, hey, we only have this much money. This is our bottom line. We can't give you the $700 million a year that the teams were asking for. This is why. And at the end of the day yesterday, I think NASCAR came to the conclusion we better come to an agreement before we let a jury decide our fate. Because if it had gone to a jury, the jury could have awarded the two teams, just the two, a very large sum of money that the judge then could have tripled, and then it would have been up to the judge to unravel the monopoly. And it could have led to anything. He could have said the Francis had to sell NASCAR. He could have ordered the Francis to sell the tracks that they own. He could have blown up the charter system. It was a total gamble. And the Francis, they wanted to protect their family business. So we got to court on Thursday morning, this morning, and there was a flurry of activity, and all of a sudden it looks like they're talking about a settlement, because they were doing a sidebar in chambers, they were going into their private workrooms, they were meeting in the hallway, they went up to a conference room. It took about 2 hours. They wound up at a deal, and it's going to be a win for 36 cars and 15 organizations that are the bedrock of NASCAR.
Well, I'm glad you touched on the fact that there was testimony and there was some evidence presented, and it sounded like this was, in fact, getting pretty spicy at some points during testimony. Was there anything that stuck out to you that was impactful testimony, or something that just kind of went, whoa, didn't see that coming? And or was there anything that you felt was super compelling that potentially swayed that movement towards this settlement?
I don't think any surprises came out in court because of the discovery process. I think that those who paid attention and downloaded the court documents, we saw all the evidence that was going to come. So there were no real surprises. But I do think that it really, really it just became very clear that this was going to be in NASCAR's favor. First, when Heather Gibbs testified. She's the daughter-in-law of Joe Gibbs, and she became co-owner of the team the day her husband died in 2022. Her husband died. His older brother, Coy Gibbs, died. His older brother, J.D. Gibbs, had died a few years earlier. Both of Joe Gibbs' sons had died. This was a family business, 32 years in NASCAR. And she wrote a really passionate letter, a really emotional, passionate letter to NASCAR and to the France family in May of this year. And she outlined why it was so important for charters to become permanent, that this protected their family legacy. And she testified that on the day that the final offer came in from NASCAR, they were just devastated. And she testified that she had to take her son to a baseball game in Chapel Hill, so she couldn't stay with Joe Gibbs and figure out what they were going to do. And she left him sitting alone in his office. She said it was dark. He was 84 years old. She could hear his blood sugar monitors going off, and he was on the phone with Jim France pleading, saying, Jim, you can't do this to us. You can't do this to us. And from that point in the trial, everything that came after it was just blow after blow after blow to NASCAR. When Jim France was on the stand on Wednesday, they presented 4 letters. One was from Rick Hendrick, one was from Roger Penske, one was from Joe Gibbs, and the fourth one was from Jack Roush. And all 4 letters pleaded with Jim France, you know, we need this. We can't stay in business without this. You've got to help us. You've got to work with us. We've got to come to an agreement. And Jim France was unmoved by the 4 letters and admitted on the stand that he considered all 4 of those men to be close personal friends. So if his close personal friends were not going to sway him, that really wasn't presenting a great look for the France family. You know, you've got this dichotomy of the France family built this from scratch. They've provided this playground, this business for everyone to earn a livelihood, to do what they want to do, to compete in the sport that they love. They've spent all this money. They do make the show go round. So in some regards, it is their right to run their business the way that they want to run their business. But at the same time, the teams have got to be financially stable. They've got to be sustainable. Since the 2016 charter agreement, since this system started in 2016, 11 of those original teams that signed charters are out of business. So if you want Richard Childress to stay in business, if you want Joe Gibbs to be able to have something to honor his family legacy, and the same for Roger Penske and the same for Rick Hendrick, you've got to make a fair business model. And that's what ultimately was agreed upon at the end of the trial when this flurry of activity happened and NASCAR relented and offered a true settlement offer.
Now, I know nobody has a crystal ball here, and it would be really tough to say. I totally understand this. But so they got these permanent charters that they were fighting for. Does everyone just go on happy family, cordial business relations, or do you foresee, cracks in the relationship going forward, or, feelings that might be lingering afterwards?
All of the above. Even though this was not introduced in court, the discovery process showed internal NASCAR communications that did not make NASCAR leadership look very good. In one of them, NASCAR Commissioner Steve Phelps called Richard Childress a redneck who needed to be taken out back and flogged. Childress testified. It was very fiery testimony. He was very angry. Even though the text messages did not come up in court, the public knows that they exist. And, we had a day last week where there was a fan outside court holding a sign that said, "NASCAR, your fans deserve better." The court of public opinion was seeing this very ugly side of NASCAR and this hard line that the France family took. And I think people are wondering, are the France family capable of continuing to run this? Should Steve Phelps keep his job? Johnny Morris, the founder and owner of Bass Pro Shops, released a letter Wednesday night calling for Steve Phelps to be removed from his position because he's a sponsor of Richard Childress Racing. He takes offense to the things that Steve Phelps said about Richard Childress. So you have these hurt feelings on one hand. On the other hand, you have 13 organizations that didn't sue who are now wondering, well, what sort of payout did 2311 and Front Row Motorsports get in this settlement? Why don't we get any money in the settlement? And I don't know if there's merit to that or not. You had an economist testify that the France family shorted all 36 chartered teams over $1 billion in the last 4 years. Now these teams may say, well, we deserve a stake. I don't know if that's true. Michael Jordan and Bob Jenkins are the only two who fought the fight. The war's over now. So do you pay the other teams retroactively? So it's going to be interesting to see what the other teams ask for, if they're content. At the end of the day, though, they're going to get an improved charter model from the one that they signed in September of 24 because of what Michael Jordan and Bob Jenkins did.
Well, Jenna, we really appreciate all your insights. Is there anything we did not cover that you feel like is a big takeaway folks should know? I know we touched on a lot over the last several minutes.
I think that the one thing is that everybody involved in this case, everybody who testified, they love NASCAR. They want to be part of NASCAR. The France family loves NASCAR. The teams love NASCAR. They just wanted a fair deal. Nobody wanted to tear the sport down. They just wanted to make a deal that everybody could live. And they said that on the steps outside the courthouse. They're ready to get to February and go racing again.
And so they shall, with different structure in place. So, Jenna, thank you.
A better structure. You're very welcome.
We appreciate all your insights. Once again, Jenna Fryer with Associated Press, putting together a very detailed article as well, as I'm checking it out right now. So folks, go ahead and take a look. Thank you. Come join us anytime here on Live Impact.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vanessa.
All right. And folks, we will have much more tonight here on Live Impact. We got a lot of topics that we want to get to. Our Colin Mayfield just did a sit-down one-on-one with the new police chief of CMPD, Estella Patterson. So we're going to play more of an extended look at that interview in just a few moments. We've got that breaking news we're following on the former co-owner of Sycamore Brewing and the statutory rape charge he faces. Have a brand new narrative that we just got from the sheriff's office out in Stanley County. So stick with us, all that and much more to come here. We're back in 2 minutes, folks, here with Live Impact.
Stuff. Or stuff.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us here on Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. As we mentioned before we went to break, we want to bring you an extended look at our sit-down from just a few hours ago with CMPD Chief Estella Patterson, essentially brand new at the wheel with the agency taking over towards the beginning of this month and facing a lot of looks, if you will, in the sense that CMPD reporting here increased crime and violent crime, for that matter, inside the city center. Also reflecting on some of the immigration enforcement presence that we've seen here in Charlotte lately. My co-anchor Colin Mayfield just sat down with Chief Patterson to talk about her thoughts on all of these and much more. So let's listen in here to what she had to say.
Well, Chief Patterson, I know who you are, so we won't start there. But we'll just jump right in because I know you don't have too much time. So, we have seen a recent survey of Charlotteans saying that they want their police force to be more proactive, right? Mm-hmm. And it seems like, speaking to that, you have that task force ready for the holiday season. I think you realize, things that happen around this time of the year.
Right.
What other things are you thinking about, or how else do you think that this department can be proactive under your tenure?
Well, yeah, being proactive is super important to me. I want people to see. I want our officers to be visible out front and people see that. So, of course, we're doing our special operation that we're doing around the Christmas season, and that's going to continue. We already have some operations that we do with our Crown Initiative in the Uptown area, as well as our Entertainment District Unit. We have our crime reduction units. They're always out doing a lot of proactive work. We're going to continue to do that, and as we staff up our department, we'll continue to do that and enlarge those units, because it is very important to me that members of the community see our officers and that they see them out and about. Yeah, and you know, we do walking beats, we do bicycle patrols in our communities, in our neighborhoods. The more we can do that, the better it is for everybody within the neighborhoods and the community.
Well said. Speaking of your officers, right, you made a point even on day one talking about the health and wellness, not even of just of your officers, right, public affairs team, any civilians that work for you in general. Right. Talk about how, you know, you're thinking about that and putting them first. Not saying that Chief Johnny Jennings didn't do that, but it seems like, you know, that's been something you've specified since day one.
Yes, and that really comes out of a survey while I was going through the chief's process, where employees just felt that they were tired, they were overworked, they were stretched, you know, and that comes directly because of our staffing numbers. So like I said, we really have to work on getting those numbers up, but also to making sure that we have things available for them. We have, you know, a mental health unit, psychologist, those kinds of things. We have a therapy doc. Those are wonderful, but also to making sure that employees have a voice, because when employees feel that they're part of processes, where they're part of solutions, then they feel they're really a part of the team and they're willing to do more for the organization. So I really want to hit the ground with hearing from our employees. I'm going to take a listen, learn, lead approach, where I listen to what they have to say about what's most important. What should we be focusing on as an organization? Where should we put our resources? And then from there, I'm going to challenge them to say, okay, you've come up with these challenges, you've told me some things, where do we go from there? I want you to be a part of the solution. That way we get buy-in, right? And they're invested in the outcomes. So it is important to me that our employees are heard and that they're seen and that they know that I will be out there with them doing whatever it is. I've always been the kind of leader who leads from the front. I want to be a part of what they're doing and that they know that I'm there for them if they need anything.
Love that. Changes. Probably can't go along the list of things that you want to get done right now, but if you can, what changes from a 30,000-foot view are you thinking about? Whether it's within the department, maybe outside, things that you see that that need to be taken care of. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, some of the changes, I'm not coming in to make sweeping changes. I want to come in and assess and see where there are gaps and then try to fill those gaps. But I know for sure one of the things I want to do is just introduce more technology. Want to be able to work smarter and bringing in technology that enables to have more eyes and ears to mitigate crime. It's always about making the community safe. You know, when you start talking about technology, sometimes people think it's because you want to target them, Big Brother's watching, that kind of thing. For me, it's not about that. It's about how do we make sure that individuals are not victimized. So I want to use technology to help us in that area. Also, too, I want to really work extensively on expanding our units, making sure that, like, our detectives, for instance, have enough of them to be able to build strong cases that are prosecutable, so that we can put those offenders, work with our DA's office to make sure that justice is served and those offenders don't get back out. It is critically important to make sure that our units are staffed appropriately. Our training unit, make sure our officers are trained, fully trained, that they have the opportunities to train. A lot of times, because we're running from call to call and we're short, we just don't get that training that we want to get in. So I really wanted to expand that. I think that is really important. And I will say that, under Chief Jennings, the foundation was set. The department was doing a lot of great work. We had some technology, but I just looked to bring a little bit more in and to make sure that, we are doing everything we can with the resources that we have.
Okay. Two last things, then I'll open the floor and see if you want to elaborate on anything. I got to jump into this. You talked about crime. I do host, and we did have, Sheriff McFadden on, right? We host the streaming platform, and we talked to some of the Republican representatives across, whether it's GOP, from the chairman from Mecklenburg County. There's been claims thrown out there, right, about local law enforcement not working with federal agents. I know that Sheriff McFadden has his view, so we won't speak for him, but I just want to talk to you a little bit about what you're seeing, right? We saw the immigration operation about 2 weeks ago. The fear that it instilled in our community, I think for everyone, not just certain parts. And then, you do have this incident on the light rail once again, right? How do you go about not only serving the overall eclectic makeup of Charlotte, but also adhering to what the other side is calling you to do? And again, there are opinions all around, so I don't want to necessarily talk about that, but how are you trying to kind of mire your way through all of this?
Yeah, well, I will tell you, fundamentally, our mission is to protect and serve. That's what the police does, right? We make our community safe, and that's what we want to do. Everyone has their individual tasks, functions, and mission. We know that some of the federal agencies, ICE, Border Patrol, and such, they have a specific mission. I know that when they have to do the job that they do it. For us, we don't enforce immigration laws. That is not our duty. That is not our mission, and we want our residents to know that live in this community. When it comes to working with our federal partners, we have a history of working with them, right? We work with our U.S. Attorney's Office, we work with the DEA, FBI, ALE, all those, HSI, and we have wonderful relationships because we are taking violent criminals off the street. When our other partners from other agencies they want to do that, we will work with them in those areas. If there's an operation where they want to remove a very dangerous felon or a criminal from the streets, we will stay within our boundaries of our job, but we will also support them in that if they're trying to get violent criminals off the street. So it's very clear what our roles are. They don't overlap when it comes to ICE and Border Patrol and that kind of thing. And so we just need to all focus on what our mission is and just doing our jobs.
Yeah. In relation to the light rail safety, it seems like also you've been kind of proactive in that response as well. And I know that you have to work with City Council and CATS as well. What does that look like in terms of how you would beef up safety? I mean, you can't probably station an officer on every single platform, let's be realistic, or every train car.
Right.
It is an open system, right? That's something I think the mayor's looking at. In other bigger cities, we know it's closed, but do you have any thoughts of how to make that safer for folks to ride transit around Charlotte?
Well, CATS is working on that, and certainly they have, they're exploring technology and all these various things. I really am not equipped to talk about that because I don't know exactly, because I'm not part of the transit system.
Yeah.
What I can say from a police perspective, though, is just having an increase of officers, I think, is good, so that people see those personnel, and then working with private security. We should be working together, not separate, in doing that, and that does make a difference. You hit the nail on the head. You cannot, and the public has to know this, we cannot staff and put somebody in every single train. It's just not feasible, it's not sustainable, it's not something that we can do. But what we can do is use technology. We can try to mitigate as much as possible by having roving patrols going through and talking with passengers, and when you see someone that's disruptive, when you see somebody that might be intoxicated, if somebody doesn't have their fare card, or they are banned from the system, that we act on that we don't allow that person to continue to ride the train or violate the law in any way.
Well said. Thanks for feeling that. Last thing is, I think it's important, and I think that, by you opening up your door by allowing us to come, you are making this a priority to have a relationship with the media, right? What are your thoughts on having like an open dialogue? There's been a lot of discussion, I think, in recent tenures and in other cities, right? Having a transparent police agency that not only is able to give information, right, but also, to their defense, make sure that they keep the information intact to do the investigation. How do you see, under your however many years you're here, utilizing the media's help in that way? Is that something that you...
Yes, I'm committed to transparency. I believe that when we work together, we get a better outcome, a better result. We get information out to the public that they need. For me, it's about responsible journalism, making sure that we put context to the information and that we are providing factual information to the public. When we can't provide it. When I can't give you something, I'm going to tell you that we can't talk about that or we can't disclose it. But when we can, I will. I will make sure that you get it. That has been my history. If you go back and look when I was in Raleigh, I was very out front. Anytime we had an officer-involved shooting, I would petition the release of the body-worn camera. I believe that the public has a right to know that, good, bad, or indifferent, we would do it. And so that is important to me, but I also feel that I look at the media and I lean on the media to make sure that the story is, that the whole story is told, that we add context to it so that the public has all the information. I think they deserve to have that information.
We look forward to working with you. Chief Patterson, that's all I have. Anything else that you wanted to say or
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry. Anything else you want to elaborate on or talk about that I didn't ask you that makes sense or important? That's important to you?
I would just say, you know, I love this community. I'm so happy to be back in Charlotte. I'm committed to making sure that our officers are doing the work that we have signed up to do and that we hold them accountable. I know oftentimes people feel that the police do things that are questionable. Well, I'm the kind of chief that I'm going to hold my employees accountable. I'm always in conversation with my internal affairs major to make sure that we're doing the right thing. If we have to change policy because something just doesn't look right, we're going to do that because I know that the trust of the public is super important and we always want to maintain that trust.
All right, once again, that was an extended sit down with our Colin Mayfield and CMPD Chief Estella Patterson as she is embarking on this new role for her and a new chapter for CMPD itself. Much more to come on this topic, of course, here on Live Impact. Got to take a quick break, folks. When we come back, we're going to be talking about that most recent light rail stabbing. A lot of layers to the story. There was just a big announcement made today about federal charges for the suspect in this case. And if you were following along with us last night, we had breaking news for you that the victim, so the person who was stabbed in this case, actually ended up getting arrested as well. Meantime, the GoFundMe page that he has started for his own injuries continues to climb. So we're going to check in with that in just a bit. But meantime, 2-minute break. We'll see you on the other side. All right, folks, welcome back here to Live Impact News. We are talking right now about the big headlines that we saw today from the most recent light rail stabbing here in Charlotte. And this was from this past Friday. We've had a lot of developments since then and a really big announcement as far as federal charges, as we mentioned, for the suspect in this case. We're actually going to get to that briefing from just a few hours ago in just a bit, but we want to check in because as we speak, the GoFundMe page raising money for the person who was stabbed in this incident continues to grow tonight. So you're looking live right now at that GoFundMe for Kenyon Dobby, and you can see at this point $114,000 raised. You could see that he had set his goal at $25,000, and Looking here, you can see just within the last 20 minutes or so, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 people, potentially more, who have given to this fund. We decided to dive into some of the policies behind GoFundMe, and if you did give to somebody, just because we found out late last night, we had this for you, it was breaking news last night at 11. This gentleman here actually ended up getting arrested last night on an unrelated case out of warrants from October and November. And he is charged, as we speak right now, with assault, serious bodily injury, assault on a pregnant woman, assault on a female, domestic violence, and 3 counts of communicating threats. Once again, this was from a separate incident unrelated to the light rail situation from back in October. He's accused of punching a woman in the face, causing a fracture to her face. He was issued an arrest warrant on the 19th of October, another warrant issued on November 18th for other charges. Apparently, court documents showing that the person who he hit was bleeding heavily from the eye and nose, documents saying that she was afraid to talk to police because he said that he would kill her children. So all that said, this person who's facing these accusations tonight has this GoFundMe page now for $114,000. People continue to donate to it. Our Megan Bragg wanted to verify exactly how GoFundMe's policies work and what you could do potentially if you wanted to get your money back if you gave to this account. Take a listen.
We went straight to GoFundMe for answers to the top questions people may have when it comes to this. First, what are the requirements to receive the money from a fundraiser? The person receiving funds must be over 18 years of age, have a government-issued photo ID, and have a bank account. Dobie created his fundraiser himself and says money will go towards his, quote, trauma and pain after being stabbed on the Blue Line. During Dobie's court appearance today for his own assault charges, his GoFundMe was the reason prosecutors asked for either a high bond or no bond at all. However, the defense argued that money is intended for medical expenses. According to GoFundMe, using the money for a different reason than what the fundraiser was set up for violates their terms of service. So Dobie can't use it for bond. If he did, it could result in the removal of the campaign, possible civil or criminal consequences, being banned from the platform, and or refunds to donors. If anyone ever has a concern with the fundraiser, they can make a request that it be looked at, and GoFundMe's trust and safety team will review it. If a donor would like to request a refund, there is a form they can fill out on GoFundMe.
All right, so there you have it. You can, by the way, find Megan's full piece on our website, WCNC.com, and inside the WCNC Charlotte mobile app. Also on our website and mobile app, the very latest on this specific, court situation that we've looked into, all the documents that we've gathered on this person's warrants and arrest, as well as the very latest on the light rail stabbing suspect's new charges, which we will actually talk about in just a couple of minutes. We're going to take a quick break, folks. When we return, we will show you the briefing from just a few hours ago today, where you have federal officials, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of North Carolina, and the FBI announcing these new charges against the suspect in this latest light rail stabbing case. A gentleman they say has been in the country illegally multiple times, has been deported twice before, they say. So we hear all that they have to say about that case in just a second, but we'll see you in 2 minutes. All right, welcome back, folks, to Live Impact News. As promised, we want to get to that briefing from just this afternoon where we heard federal authorities talking about brand new federal charges against the latest light rail stabbing suspect. And this is a person we hear from authorities, and you'll hear them kind of outline this in the briefing, who's in the country illegally, they say, and has been here multiple times illegally. That is playing into one of the charges that we're seeing that he faces tonight. So with that, let's get to that. We'll hop in, of course, with anything big and breaking.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I'm here with Jim Barnacle, who's the special agent in charge of the FBI for North Carolina. Thanks for being here, Jim. And we're here to announce two things today. The first is that DeCarlos Brown Jr., who we charged with the brutal and random stabbing of Irina Zarutska on Charlotte's light rail system, made his first appearance for his initial appearance in federal court today. I know a lot of you were in the courtroom for that today. He was advised of his rights by a federal judge. He's now in federal custody, and his federal case will move forward according to the federal rules of criminal procedure. We first charged Mr. Brown by criminal complaint. A lot of you were here that day. He was subsequently formally charged by the grand jury in that case with committing an act causing death on a mass transportation system. Since we announced those charges here, Mr. Barnacle and I have met in person with Irina Zarutska's family. They are heartbroken. Our hearts go out to them. We think about them every day. We are committed to justice for her and for her family, and my team and I will not stop until we get justice for her and her family. But we're here to announce the second thing today as well. We're here to announce charges in the more recent second light rail stabbing on the Charlotte light rail system. Today, we filed federal charges against Oscar Solorzano Garcia. Mr. Solorzano Garcia is an illegal immigrant here in the United States, and not only is he illegally here, he has not been deported not just once before, he has twice been deported from the United States before. Now, coming back to the United States after you're deported is a federal crime, and it's a federal crime that doesn't just end in another deportation, it ends in prison time in a United States prison. Mr. Solorzano Garcia has previously been sentenced to 18 months for illegal reentry, but we have charged him again with illegal reentry, and we hope the border is more secure now than it was before. We have also charged him with a crime of violence on a mass transportation system. That's that section 1992A7 of Title 18. It's the same charge that we charged DeCarlos Brown Jr. with for his stabbing on the train. In a minute, Mr. Barnacle will give you a little bit more details about the allegations that we've made and how that crime came to be, at least as we allege it. But I want to say this. Everyone who rides the light rail is a victim of this crime today. People use the light rail because they have disabilities and they can't drive. They use it to get an education, which the expansion to UNCC made extremely accessible. They use it to go to work or to return from work, like Irina Zarutska was. They use it to go about their daily errands, to go to the library, to go to the grocery store. They use it to visit family. And it is extremely important to me that people are not only safe on the light rail, but that they feel safe on the light rail, which is really just as important, because people should be able to go about their lives and enjoy the infrastructure that their tax money paid for without worrying about who's sitting behind them or who's down the rail car. You're probably not going to believe this, but my Christmas card last year was actually a picture of my family on the light rail. And the reason is because we took the light rail to Lowe's, and we got a Christmas tree, and we got on the light rail and took it home. And it was this great family moment because we ran into all these people. Everyone said, oh, you got your tree. It was this community moment that we have in Charlotte a lot. That's part of what makes Charlotte what it is this community that loves the city and enjoys what we have built here. Now, this year I went to the same Lowe's to get my Christmas tree, but I brought a pickup truck this time. I did not ride the light rail, and that makes me sad. It makes me sad because you learn a lot on the light rail. I have a 4-year-old daughter. You encounter people on the light rail that are using the light rail for these opportunities that we talk about, that are using it to go to college, to get work, to obtain things that you could not obtain without that infrastructure in the city. And not only does she lose that lesson this year, but a lot of people in Charlotte are losing the opportunities that are brought by public transportation. And we've invested too much as a city to let that happen. The federal statute prohibiting violent acts on mass transportation systems exists for this reason. Those systems belong to the public. They must be safe, they must be accessible, and they must be free from violence. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that is the case, at least here in Charlotte. I want to thank a lot of people today. First, I want to thank the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, our new Chief Stella Patterson, who has put an emphasis on violent crime, particularly in our areas where we congregate, like Uptown and public transportation. Her department quickly made an arrest here. And this is the second light rail been made practically immediately afterward, which is impressive police work. I want to thank the District Attorney's Office and Spencer Merriweather, who brought charges quickly and detained the defendant on state charges. I want to thank Immigration and Customs Enforcement for working across agencies to make sure people like Mr. Solorzano Garcia are not here to commit these crimes. And of course, I want to thank the FBI for a very, very quick investigation so we could quickly bring these charges, which we brought by criminal complaint today. We have built a world-class city here in Charlotte. There's no question about that. But that will all be lost if our residents and visitors alike do not feel safe when they go about their daily lives. But the federal government is here to make sure that those who use public transportation, those who rely on public transportation, can safely do so, and not just safely do so, safe when they do so, because everyone deserves to enjoy all that Charlotte has to offer. I'll now turn it over to Mr. Barnacle, who'll talk a little bit more about the incident itself.
Thank you, Russ. Jim Barnacle, the FBI Special Agent in charge here in Charlotte and overseeing North Carolina. 2 months ago, I stood in this exact spot with U.S. Attorney Ferguson to announce federal charges related to the tragic murder of Irina Zarutska last August. Irina's family has publicly expressed their concerns upon hearing someone else was stabbed on the light rail. And our hearts go out to her family again. In this case, Good Samaritans rendered aid to the victim and gave CMPD officers a detailed description of the alleged attacker, which helped those officers arrest the suspect within minutes. The person charged in this crime, Oscar Solorzano Garcia, never should have been in Charlotte or ever been in this country. He had been deported twice. I'll detail his prior criminal history in a minute, but first I want to read from the criminal complaint about the night of December 5th. The first calls came into 911 at approximately 4:49 p.m. A witness told the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department Solorzano Garcia got onto the train at Scaly Bark Road, Carson Boulevard Station, and that he appeared to be intoxicated and was being belligerent. The witness went on to say the victim and Solorzano Garcia got into a verbal altercation on the 9th Street station and stated as the train began to arrive at Parkwood Station, Solorzano Garcia pulled out a long knife and a red sheath from the right side of his pocket, his pants. The witness said the knife was at least 12 inches long. They stated Solorzano Garcia stabbed the victim in the chest with a knife, then dropped the knife on the ground, picked it back up, then got off the train and jumped over a black chain-link fence and ran up North Brevard Street. CMPD arrested him quickly, and our agents began working with their detectives. The FBI reached out to our partners at ICE and discovered Solorzano Garcia has a criminal history in the United States dating back to 2012. He's used at least 4 aliases. Here's what I can tell you about his previous encounters with law enforcement. In March of 2012, he was arrested by the Union City Police Department in New Jersey, convicted of robbery. In July of 2016, he was arrested by the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office in Florida for aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. Multiple police reports say he stabbed a victim multiple times with a knife. As in the United States of America in March of 2018, just by U.S. Border Protection, legal re-entry in the Southern District of Texas, sentenced to 8 months federal prison. Police prison. And we're time. Patterson announced a new initiative called Operation Safe Season. Simultaneously, a few weeks ago, the FBI Operation Coast to Coast. And it's very nice we have these 2 operations running at the same time. And they are to fight violent crime across the United States. Here in this city, we are working with CMPD under the command of Estella Patterson, and we are supporting the initiative to reduce violent crime. And last week, she surged police to the Uptown area, and you'll have to talk to CMPD about the details of that. But I can tell you that the FBI's Violent Crime and Safe Streets task forces were out last weekend, and they worked cases jointly with CMPD, and we are pleased to announce today that we have referred 6 cases to the U.S. Attorney's Office here in the Western District of North Carolina, and those were 6 people that were felons in possessions of firearms. Of those 6 people, 2 stolen firearms were recovered. 1 firearm was being possessed by a gang member, and a firearm had its serial number scratched out. The weapon was altered. We've got a crime problem across North Carolina. There are many agencies committed to working federal crimes and working state and local crimes. We met earlier this week with all the federal partners here in North Carolina. The State Bureau of Investigation also attended that meeting, and the U.S. Attorney's offices from North Carolina and South Carolina. And we talked about addressing violent crime and crime and the plight brought to us by drugs and the cartels. So we look forward to future collaboration and more arrests. Today, circling back to what we had, as U.S. Attorney Ferguson said, people should be able to ride this light rail. They should be able to go home from work. They should be able to go out to to town here. They should be able to get home each evening, and it should be safe and secure. And unfortunately, it is not. We had a terrible situation, and thankfully, we did not lose another life. That is all I have. Turn to Russ for questions, perhaps.
Sure, thank you. We're happy to take any questions you've got.
Mr. Ferguson, you with Queen City News here in Charlotte. Earlier this week, the sheriff played.
And before we get to those Q&As there, we're going to take a quick break here on Live Impact to return with more from this announcement, as well as some breaking news that we're following from elsewhere in the state, a stabbing that happened at a school. We've just got some new information on where the legal system could go with this case. We'll be right back. Welcome back here. We're following some breaking news here on Live Impact News. We are just getting some updates on the legal front regarding a stabbing that happened at a high school in Winston-Salem earlier this week. We did bring this to you previously here on WCNC Plus, but you're looking right now at the young man who died, 16-year-old Cameron Graham, died after a struggle with an older student over a THC vape pen in a school bathroom on Tuesday. We've just learned that the Forsyth County District Attorney Jim O'Neill says no charges would be filed against that 18-year-old student, so that other student who was involved with the struggle and following apparently the actual stabbing. But we are hearing as well, in response to that, the family of this young man now says that they plan to seek legal action because of the lack of charges. That said, we just heard from the district attorney out there about why there would be no charges. So take a listen.
Many people in this community don't understand that the 18-year-old, upon seeing that his friend was stabbed and laying on the ground, tried to render aid, tried to pack the wound and keep pressure on it. The 18-year-old was interviewed by law enforcement while he was recovering from his own injuries, and I can tell you, he cried and cried when he learned that his friend was dead.
So we go on to hear the district attorney talking about how they believe there's some sort of element of self-defense that plays into the matter here. We talked about how there was a struggle. Apparently, Graham, the young man whose photo we showed to you, had brought a 3-inch knife. That 18-year-old had actually sustained defensive wounds reportedly while trying to wrestle the knife away. And then you heard the district attorney talking about later then tried to save that young man's life. So once again, no charges set to be filed, no criminal charges here, no criminal action, according to the district attorney in Forsyth, following that deadly stabbing of a high schooler from Tuesday, North Forsyth High School in Winston-Salem. As we learn more, we'll keep you posted. As we talked about, the family is now seeking different action as a response to this decision by the district attorney's office. With that, we want to go back to our briefing here that we've been following regarding the brand new federal charges that are being brought against the suspect in the light rail stabbing from this past Friday. We're going to rejoin that. We are coming up on a question and answer session with reporters who were there today in Charlotte.
We had a terrible situation, and thankfully we did not lose another life. That is all I have. Turn to Russ for questions, perhaps.
Sure. Thank you. We're happy to take any questions you've got.
Mr. Ferguson, you ever with Queen City News here in Charlotte. Earlier this week, the sheriff placed some onus on DHS because Mr. Solorzano wasn't caught up in the Operation Charlotte's Web in the past weeks. Has DHS explained why he was not on that list of their detainees or pickups?
No, well, here's the thing about illegal immigration. There's no record of these people coming into the United States or being in the United States or where they are in the United States. So there's not a list of illegal immigrants we can go down and arrest them all, or we would do it. And that's why the CBP operation sometimes seemed a little hectic at times, because it is a very difficult crime to detect. And they didn't get Mr. Solorzano Garcia, but I certainly wish that they had, because we would have saved a very, very bad incident here.
Russ Hunter here with
Hunter.
Channel 9. We have heard that there could potentially be gang affiliation and ties with Mr. Solorzano. Can you speak on that? Are there indeed gang ties with him?
So this investigation is ongoing. There are some initial indications there may be a gang relation, tattoos and things like that would be consistent with MS-13. We have not confirmed yet whether there are any gang affiliations here, and that's the FBI is actively working on that.
And I know you spoke to the second question, the re-entry charge. He got past it once, I guess, with the actual charge of it. Do you think it's going to stop him this time? Or what needs to be done further?
Yeah, that's a great question. He did serve 18 months before and came back, so it didn't stop him that time. We're looking to get a much longer sentence this time, and I hope send a message with it. The other thing is the border is much more secure than it used to be, and so at the end of his sentence, he will be deported, and if that border security remains, we are more confident that he will not re-enter the United States.
Casey Jones with WCCD. So this is the second person charged with violence on mass transportation here in Charlotte, maybe in the last 100 days. So do you think it's time for city leaders to look at maybe closing the transit system, you know, adding more barriers, more security for safety?
Yeah, I mean, it's above my pay grade on what to do as far as transit goes. I think transit has to be accessible to people. We have to have the trains, we have to have the buses. People rely on it to get to the grocery store, to get to work, to get to education. We have to have it. Should it be more secure? Absolutely, I think so. Whatever we're doing now is not working. We've had 2 stabbings, 1 fatal, and that's in addition to a bunch of other more minor crimes, relatively minor crimes that happen on the light rail every day. And we've seen reports of people riding the light rail back and forth, using it as a mobile shelter. And I suspect a lot of those people are people that can't get into the homeless shelter or have been kicked out of the homeless shelter. So it's people that you really don't want on your transit system. Some of those people are banned from the transit system and still ride the transit system, as we suspect this defendant here was. So some enforcement on those as trespasses and keeping the really bad actors off the transit system would be helpful. I think enforcing tickets would be helpful and would probably pay for itself with the extra revenue if everyone's buying tickets. So I do think there are things that can be done, and I hope our city leaders are looking at that and will do it, and I hope when voters go to the polls, they will hold them accountable to do that.
Chloe from Spectrum News, you just mentioned that you're seeking a longer sentence than the 18 months. What kind of sentence are you looking for?
Yeah, so we have 2 charges here. It's the illegal reentry charge as well as the 1992 violence on a train charge. And at the end of the day, a judge will assess and determine the sentence based on a variety of factors, which includes criminal history, which will drive a sentence, as well as other factors specific to this defendant. The statutory maximum for the 1992 charge is life in prison. So that's what he is facing. Yeah.
Russ, your office often deals with the victims and their families in these 2 cases and other cases. What is it that city leaders or city officials who say they are trying to solve a problem on our light rail system, what is it that they may not be grasping of the impact that it is clearly having on citizens here?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think people are really starting to see the issue, but I think it's that these are not discrete crimes. And we have tremendous violence in this city, sadly, and there are violent acts all over the city. But when they happen on a closed-in rail car with closed doors where you cannot get off, that is a terrifying situation, and it's driving people not to use the infrastructure that as citizens they pay for. And I hope that that's what they're taking from this, is that we've got to do something, because citizens are entitled to use that train and feel safe doing it. And so I hope that's the message they're taking.
Russ, when it comes to public transit, it's not just the light rail system that has a safety problem. We know that there's, you know, assaults and stabbings on the bus systems all the time, even shootings. There's been fatal shootings. So can we expect the federal government to take the same kind of tough stance on the bus system that they've been taking on the light rail system?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Casey. And it's not just the bus system, it's the special transportation system that handicapped individuals use as well. And yes, we're concerned about the whole system. And we have evaluated cases on the bus before, and some of those cases have different facts and have not been able to bring charges in them. But listen, if you are riding public transportation, I don't care if it's a bus, I don't care if it is a train, I don't care if it's a special transportation vehicle, I don't care if it's a stop. We are going to look at that case and we're going to hold you accountable at the federal level, because it's not working at the state level. And so buses are no different to me. Buses are a little better because you can stop the bus and open the door and let people off. You know, in this case, the doors were closed and Mr. Solorzano Garcia was on the train with those people for minutes. And thankfully, he didn't do any other violent acts, but this is the second. I really terrifies me to think about what the third could be.
Russ, do you think, Katie Soul of WBTV, do you think there needs to be stricter weapons enforcement, more security? We were out talking with riders this week who said the CATS contract on a marketing firm they feel should have been put towards tighter security enforcement, whether that's more officers or some sort of screening. What do you think needs to be done to stop people from walking on the light rail with an alleged 12-inch knife?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, the light rail sells itself. I don't think we need a PR system to sell the light rail. It has been a tremendous success in Charlotte. It will not sell itself, and no PR firm in the world will sell it if people don't feel safe riding it. So I absolutely think we need stepped up security. We need people looking for people who have been banned before. If you've been banned from the light rail, you've been banned for a reason. They don't go around the light rail banning people here and there. They ban you because you've done something on there and you should not be on the train. So extra security should be enforcing those bans. If there was an officer on that train when this happened, I think this incident could have been avoided because Mr. Solorzano Garcia got on allegedly inebriated, causing trouble, causing a ruckus for everyone on the train. This victim, we allege, stood up to him and ended up stabbed. But if security had been on the train, they could have kicked him off before it rose to that level. So I absolutely think that would be a step in the right direction. Thank you, Katie.
All right, folks, and we'll return to this briefing just as soon as we can, but we are following some breaking news here on Live Impact News. We just got some new information from Concord Police within the last several minutes. You remember that tree lighting that happened in Concord last month, and you can see this video showing folks fleeing as shots were fired there. We are just now hearing from the Concord Police Department that the juvenile suspect, the 15-year-old suspect in this case, was actually just released from the hospital today, and the police department has formally filed petitions through the Department of Juvenile Justice for multiple charges. They are as follows: assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill, inflicting serious injury, 2 counts of discharging a weapon into an occupied property in operation, inflicting serious bodily injury, and inciting a riot. Now, as you might suspect, because this person is underage, they are 15 years old, there are privacy laws in effect here, so police cannot release any information that would identify this person. However, we do know that this is just one person who is being charged in this case. An 18-year-old Nasir Bostic is charged with assault with a deadly weapon, inflicting serious injury with intent to kill, and inciting a riot. And he was actually injured during the shooting, as was this 15-year-old who we just told you was released from the hospital. And then there's another person, a 17-year-old Kevon Rayshon Bostic, and then there is this unnamed 15-year-old. So once again, formal charges now filed against the 15-year-old, the minor suspect in this case. We are going to, of course, follow this for you and have the very latest for you on Live Impact News. We will take a quick break here. We'll be back in 2 minutes. As we mentioned, we're planning to rejoin this briefing from federal officials regarding the light rail stabbing suspect from last week, the brand new federal charges that were filed. So stick with us. We'll see you on the other side of the break. 2 minutes. All right, we appreciate you sticking with us here on Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. We will turn now back to the Q&A session with U.S. Attorney for the Western District of North Carolina, Russ Ferguson, as he, alongside FBI officials, announced these new federal charges against the stabbing in the latest stabbing suspect in the latest light rail stabbing from last week, Friday. This is against, we kind of recap this for you, a person they say has been in the country illegally, has been deported twice, and is facing charges related to that, as well as now violence on a mass transportation system. Let's listen in as the Q&A session with reporters continues.
When we were here 2-ish plus months ago, I think a lot of people were saying this was a one-off case. Now that we're here all over again, do you believe the transit system is safe?
Yeah, I wish that were a one-off case, and I was one who thought that as well, and couldn't believe we had a second stabbing, especially after there's been some attention and some stepped up efforts here. So is the light rail safe? I told you I didn't go on it this year to get my Christmas tree. I don't know if the light rail is safe. It probably depends on what car you're in, what time of day, and where you're going. But what I can tell you this, it doesn't matter to me. It matters, but what matters more than if the light rail is safe is if the light rail feels safe. Because safety is one thing, but if you don't feel safe riding the train, going to the train, getting on the train, you're not going to ride the train. And that is a whole lot of infrastructure we have invested in for nothing. And I don't think the light rail feels safe at this moment, but that's why we're doing this. That's why we're bringing these charges. We want people to feel safe on the train, and we are not going to rest until they do.
Jim, I have a quick question with the 6 arrests, if you don't mind. Can you just expand on, were all of those arrests from the weekend in Uptown during that operation?
Yes, so CMPD had an operation in Uptown of arrests that they made. 6 were adopted for federal prosecution. So the FBI had a half dozen agents out this weekend as part of our support for the operation. We also had task force officers out. And so we're looking as the local police, CMPD in this case, identify crime. They do whatever, they bleed. They make arrests, they made all kinds of arrests, whether it was DUI, but some things elevated to a higher level, and felons were identified possessing of firearms. So those are the cases we're looking to adopt, right? Where there's a possibility of a federal charge. As you know, the majority of criminal activity is a violation of state law, but is not a violation of federal law. And so where we can come in is felons in possession of a weapon. That is illegal. We can work that. Gangbangers, if they're part of a gang, we can work that. Transnational organized criminals, cartels, and then mass murder. And thank God we don't have any of those. But those are the federal crimes. So yes, all 6 were in Uptown, all felons in possession, and some were a little worse than others. And we have turned those over to the Western District, and then it is now out of our hands. Western District will make charging decisions on those.
Special Agent Barnacle, you have your agents out on the streets. A lot of people say that they don't feel safe in Uptown. What message do you want to send to the citizens about what you all are doing, and a message to criminals too?
Yeah, so our job at the FBI, our mission, is to uphold the Constitution and protect the American people. So that is what we are out doing. We are going to support local and state law enforcement. In some cases, we're going to supplement. We do not have enough agents or enough resources to work every single case that happens. So we're going to prioritize cases, and we're going to look for areas where there's hot spots, there's crime problems, there's gang problems. We're going to have initiatives where we go and we focus on certain crime problems. So our Coast to Coast initiative is focusing on violent crime across the United States, but here in this state, we're looking at the urban areas and some of the more country areas where we're seeing gangs and we're seeing an increase in violent crime. We're going out, we're working with state and local police. So basically, your FBI is committed to identifying criminals, conducting logical investigations, making arrests and referring these cases for federal prosecution. And the idea behind federal prosecution is the sentences are stiff, the bad guys go away for a long time. What we see at the state level, not just in North Carolina, but we see people go in to the system and they're back out on the street, sometimes the same day, sometimes within a few days, or very short sentences, and guess what? They're gonna repeat the crime. They're recidivist criminals. When we have 6 felons in possession, they've already been convicted. They already know they're not allowed to carry a weapon, but here they are doing it time and again.
All right, folks, and with that, we're going to pivot away to a brand new feed that just came into our newsroom here. We have President Trump alongside First Lady Melania Trump making some remarks right now at the Congressional Ball in Washington, D.C. Let's listen in for a bit.
And Second Lady Usha Vance. Usha, thank you very much. Thank you, Usha. Also a man that a few of you might know, not very well, but you might know him. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. Where's Mike? What a great job you're doing. What a great job. And most importantly, you have a wonderful, beautiful wife. Thank you very much. Say hello to the boys, okay? It's great to have you both. It's not easy to manage with a majority of 3. But we've been up to 7, and we sort of veer back and forth. But he's done a job, and he gets along very well with the Democrats. Sometimes I would say he gets along too well. That bothers me. We also have Senate Majority Leader John Thune here. Where's John? Where is John? One of the really good, he's a good, thank you. Oh, wow, look at him. See, he always gives the best location to others. Thank you, John. Thank you for everything. You've done a great job. It's not easy, John. It's not easy. Thank you very much. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise. Where is Steve? Where is Steve, Mr. Speaker? I'll tell you what, I always say he's got great courage because he got hit real hard. He got hit harder than I got hit. I got hit too, but I got a little, I have a throbbing feeling. He had much more than a throbbing feeling. In fact, I went to the hospital and they actually thought he wasn't going to make it. His wife was devastated. She was crying. I tell the story. I found out that night you have a wife that loves you dearly. I know many wives would not even be crying. But your wife was absolutely a mess. She was crying. She was inconsolable, Steve. So we found that out, but he made it. And then he went about 4 months later. He could barely walk. He went and he played second base in the game between between you people, right? Republicans and Democrats. He could barely walk. He could barely stand. He was not going to be the great Bobby Richardson, all-star second baseman of the New York Yankees for 15 years. And this could only happen by God. A shot was hit to him so hard, I said, oh no. And it went right at him. He fell to his knees, which was his only option because he couldn't bend. This was not a good-looking picture. He knocked down the ball, picked it up, could barely grab it, threw it to first base. The runner, who was actually a very good Democrat athlete, was out. And I said that, and I've told this, that was a miracle. That was a miracle. And then brilliantly, after one hitter, the manager took him out of the game. Because there was no way that he was going to outdo that one. So, Steve, it's great that you're here, and we love you, Steve, and you went through a lot. Majority Whip Tom Emmer, a fantastic guy with a fantastic spouse. Where is Tom? Tom is a great guy. I don't know what you're going to do about Minnesota. Where? Oh, well, there he is. He's a handsome devil, isn't he? With an unbelievable wife who puts up with a lot of stuff. She does not have an easy job, Tom. You are a difficult man. And Tom is very friendly with the Somalians. He's doing a great job. He's a big fan. He's a big fan of Somalia. Anyway, he said, please correct that. Thank you, Tom, very much. Thank you. He's a great guy. He's done a fantastic job, and we really appreciate it. And you have so many members of the House and the Senate, but I just want to thank a few of them, and I do mean it. I think it's fantastic that we're all here together tonight. We have cabinet members, and we have Marco is here. Scott Bessent is here. We got them all sort of here, every single one. I won't call them out because they're not names that are going to get huge applause from this very substantially Democrat audience. But you know what? They're working toward making America great again. It's very simple. We are making America great again. I saw it today on a somewhat leftish broadcast. They were saying, you know, whether you like it or not, these numbers are starting to get very good, and they are, and that's good for all of us. But during the season of joy and peace, we have so much to celebrate as a nation. Because 1 year ago, we really were. We were a country that was in serious trouble. There are those that say we were a country that was really not going to make it. And they were saying we were not going to make it. Now we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. They're all saying it. Other leaders are saying it. The European nations are saying it. The European nations are reporting that your president might as well be the leader of the European nations also. They listen to us and they respect us like they've never respected us before. So we're going to work very hard. We get along with them. We want to get along with as many nations as we can. We've been ripped off by a lot of them for a lot of years, and frankly, a lot of the Democrats knew that better than some of the Republicans. But we've been ripped off and taken advantage of by friend and foe. And in many cases, friend was worse than foe. But not anymore. We have, I don't know if you noticed, the deficit was cut down by 64%. Nobody's ever heard of a number like that. You know why? A thing called tariffs. The tariffs are so big and so substantial. And it was just announced 2 weeks ago, the deficit's cut down by, nobody ever heard of a number like that. If the deficit goes down by 2%, it's like a great thing. The tariffs have reduced the deficit by 64%. Nobody has ever seen. And frankly, we haven't even started yet. It's given us strength. We've solved 8 wars. Think of it, 8 wars have been solved. Although Thailand and Cambodia, I think I'm going to have to make a couple of phone calls on Thailand, but we'll get that one back on track. But think of it, we've solved 8 wars. That's never happened. And more Americans are working today than ever before in the history of our country. We've never had anything like it. We have more Americans working today than at any time, by far, in the history of our country. And 100% of all new jobs have been created, 100% created in the private sector. I mean, that's a big factor, right, Virginia, right? Also, just announced, real wages are up for the typical worker by more than $1,000 a year. That's a record, $1,000 a year. And many of you in Congress worked very hard, both sides, this year to keep the promises that you were elected on and to deliver big wins for the American people, and Democrats worked very hard too. I mean, I think you could get rid of a couple of your little policies like men and women's sports, open borders, transgender for everybody. But other than that, I like what you're doing. You passed the largest tax cuts in American history. We all did that. We passed the largest spending cuts in American history. And we have the largest regulation cuts by far in American history. All of these things we just passed. You passed the Laken Riley Act to get criminal aliens off the streets so they don't kill our people, hurt our people, mug our people, slice up our people, which is what they did. They're not doing it so much because crime is way down. And you passed the Genius Act to unleash a new era of financial innovation. And on a bipartisan basis, working with a woman named Melania. Have you heard of Melania? But working with our great First Lady, you passed the Take It Down Act to protect our nation's youth from some horrible people. And I think, I'm not sure, this is hard to believe. I believe this is correct. It was just about a unanimous vote, to which I said, maybe you should be doing my job, because I don't get one vote. You know that it did anybody vote against it? Even Rand Paul voted for it, right? Because Rand Paul's an automatic no vote. He's not a Democrat vote, but he's an automatic no. Everybody voted. I think it was just about unanimous. I can't believe it. She came home I said, I heard you got a unanimous vote. Yeah, she's looking.
All right, folks, so we are going to take a quick break here on Live Impact. We will rejoin with this feed when we return in 2 minutes. And we do urge you to stick around because we have sports director Nick Carboni coming up in just a few minutes as well, talking about playoff scenarios, implications too, as folks are watching that Falcons-Bucks game tonight. So he will be with us in the Live Impact News studio in just a few minutes. We hope you stick with us. We'll see you on the other side of the break. 2 minutes. All right, folks, welcome back to Live Impact News. We're going to head back to this live feed from the Congressional Ball in Washington, D.C. President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump making some remarks. It sounds like the First Lady is now speaking. As we head to our 3-box, you'll also see a live look at the U.S. Capitol in the top left corner. We've got some activity that we were watching throughout the day, ending with 2 failed votes on 2 different partisan health care bills ahead of that key end of the month deadline with the ACA subsidies expiring. So we will watch and wait and see how that plays out. Also, live look at the Rockefeller Center tree on lit up. It looks glorious right now. That's going to be in New York City, bottom left corner. We'll move over to our 3-box now.
For children, okay? I don't know what it is she's doing, but I know it's going to be great for children because she loves children, and she's got a wonderful boy, and she's very proud of her boy. But she loves children, and if she puts it out, it'll be maybe unanimous again, or whatever that was, but very close, unanimous again. I want to thank you all. Have a great Christmas, a great Hanukkah, and a fantastic year. But we're going to have a great 3 years, 4 years, 10 years. We're going to make it great. Our country is going to be strong, safe, rich. It's going to be great. We're going to make America great again. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Right, and folks, once again, that was the President and First Lady making some remarks at the Congressional Ball. We heard him talking about some of the accomplishments he says that he sees from his administration and also from lawmakers that are following some of his suggestions as far as policy over the course of the past year. As we mentioned, healthcare is in the forefront right now. We've got that live look right now at the Capitol. This is a place we mentioned there have been a lot of dialogues about health care. The Senate did fail to pass those two partisan health care bills today, essentially rejecting Affordable Care Act funding, and there was an alternative that was a Republican suggested measure. This is all coming ahead of that December 31st deadline to avoid premium hikes under Affordable Care Act or Obamacare, if you prefer. And this is something that we're seeing folks, we've heard Democrats specifically kind of talking about this as a big priority for them to kind of curb and get ahead of over the last several weeks. And we've heard some folks within the Republican Party, too, saying this is a worry for them as well. So neither bill, we should mention, got the 60 votes it needed to advance. And we are seeing that this could be an issue that will play out more and more as a big headline, potentially something that Democrats might hope to use to mobilize voters in the upcoming midterm elections in 2026 if there is no outcome to prevent these cost increases. We'll definitely keep an eye on things on that front, and also on that congressional ball feed. It looks like we're getting some different crowd shots at this point as we go back to that. So lots of folks who are in attendance. So we'll wait and see if there are any other speakers for us tonight. But with that, we do want to say it's probably a great time to take a quick break here. We'll be back in 2 minutes. We will be talking about that big breaking news of the evening, which we brought top of the hour in our 7 o'clock hour. Some brand new information coming from the Stanley County Sheriff's Office regarding the statutory rape charges that the former co-owner of Sycamore Brewing, now former co-owner, is facing. So we just got a brand new narrative of how this came to light and how this got on the radar for authorities and deputies. So we'll see you in 2 minutes with that information. All right, folks, thanks so much for staying with us here on Live Impact News. We've been following some breaking news throughout the evening. Just this evening, in fact, in the last couple of hours, we received a brand new update from Stanley County Sheriff regarding the story that we've been following with the now former co-owner of Sycamore Brewing. We had for you throughout the day new information that Justin Brigham, 44-year-old Justin Brigham, is facing charges including statutory rape and burglary. The rape charges stem from an alleged encounter with a 13-year-old girl. And brand new tonight, we've got information from the Stanley County Sheriff shedding light on how this situation allegedly came to light. So the Sheriff's Office sending us a statement saying that this all started with a 911 call to a house in Stanfield, And that 911 call was basically the parents, from what we see from this kind of narrative here, the parents of this young girl who said that they saw an unknown man in her bedroom. They said that when deputies got there, the man was completely undressed and found in a nearby vehicle. They ended up detaining him, they say, without incident. That person they've identified as 44-year-old Justin Brigham. And we actually have for you, trying to pull up his picture. There we go. We've moved it over, Sean, to play deck 2. So there he is. So that's his mugshot. Made an initial appearance in district court in Stanley County this morning. That bond set at $10 million, and he's currently being held at the Stanley County Detention Center. Our Walker Lawson, spoke with folks in the community about the reaction to this today. As you can imagine, folks saying that they're very concerned hearing about these allegations. Let's get a listen to Walker's reporting here.
It was a pit in my stomach. I was so sick.
For many in South End, the news is disturbing and hard to process. Arrest warrants obtained by WCNC Charlotte from the Stanley County Sheriff's Office lay out the accusations. Investigators say 44-year-old Justin Brigham broke into a home and raped a 13-year-old girl on Wednesday. He was arrested Thursday, appearing in court this morning, where a judge set bond at $10 million. And the fallout was almost immediate. Not long after news broke, his wife and Sycamore's co-owner posted a statement on Instagram that read in part, "To our employees, customers, and partners, I'm devastated by the charges against Justin and the pain this has inflicted on our family and others. Effective immediately, I am assuming full leadership of the company. Justin is divesting all of his interests and will have no further involvement." Regulars of Sycamore say they have no plans to return.
I think they definitely should have new ownership. I just don't really know how you could come back from something like this.
All right, and be sure that we'll have more updates for you throughout the evening and in the coming days and weeks here on WCNC Plus. We will take a break here. Back in 2 minutes, our sports director, Nick Carboni, is standing by right now in the Live Impact studio to talk about Panthers playoff scenarios. A lot of implications, and folks are kind of watching things closely as some games, including one happening right now, are playing out. So stay with us. We'll be back in 2 minutes. All right, welcome everyone back to Live Impact News. Now Live Impact Sports right now, because we've got our sports director, Nick Carboni, standing by as it's starting to get more interesting here. So
scoreboard watching.
I know,
like
who
we
would've
were on
thought?
Sunday. So here's the deal with the Panthers. Sunday fans had to root for, or at least hope, that the Saints beat the Buccaneers. That happened, and tonight they're hoping that the Atlanta Falcons beat the Buccaneers. Tampa Bay did just go up 7-0. They're in the early portion of that contest, and what that would do, let's just break it down. The easiest path for the Panthers to make the playoffs, and it's great that we're having this conversation, is to sweep the Bucs in their 2 games against Tampa Bay in the final 3 weeks of the season, because the NFL divisional tiebreaker is, the list is a mile long, and I can sit here and read it to you. It goes all the way down to a coin toss, but a number 1 is head-to-head matchup. So if Carolina beats the Bucs twice, they're in the playoffs as division champions. But the second tiebreaker, division winning percentage, is kind of where we're getting into this, like, okay, if the Bucs lose tonight and the Panthers win Sunday against the Saints, that sets up a Panthers win and take all scenario at home next week. So that's what we're hoping for here.
Well, and I quite don't know what to think, in the sense that I feel like a few weeks ago we would have been like, oh, playing the Saints, sure, but we did that and it didn't go great. I was at that game. That was a really frustrating one to watch. And it feels like the Saints have just been like trapping teams lately.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. They've kind of gotten some traction with their quarterback, Tyler Shuck, and really started, unfortunately, for the Panthers here in Carolina. I wouldn't say he's like lighting the world on fire. I mean, he ran around a couple times, got into the end zone against the Bucs last week in the rain. Against Carolina, he was really good in situational football, and then in situations where Pro Bowl corner J.C. Horn fell down. I don't see that happening again, as J.C. looks like he's going to be good to go coming out of concussion protocol. He's having a fantastic year. So I think those things will be different. Then you look at that was really the end of that run, Rico, run offensive strategy, where it was just like, let's hand this dude the rock. He's red hot, and he's going to take care of it. Well, the Saints had a plan for that, and the Panthers didn't have a response for that plan to attack through the air. And, we've seen that with the Panthers every couple of weeks, but what I go back to with the Rams win before the bye, Vanessa, is that was the beginning of a 5-game stretch to close the season that looked really, really hard. But then the Panthers picked off the hardest team on the list. And so I think they've got confidence. Now they just have to have the consistency to go with it. That's the next part of this team learning how to win. They haven't won consecutive games since that 3-game win streak in October. One other thing I think will be different in the run game for Carolina, which was stymied by the Saints, is they kind of know how the Saints are, at least operated in that game with their defensive coordinator, Brandon Staley, former Chargers head coach. And that was, yes, they loaded the box against the run, but they also brought in all these guys off the edge, safeties, linebackers, corners, to stop the run. And that really, literally and figuratively tripped up the Panthers. And then Chuba Hubbard was dealing with his calf injury at that point. It really was just Rico Dowdle that was available to, carry the load. And you saw in that Rams game, Dave Canales handed it to one of them 18 times and the other one 17 times. So they're both fresh now. Chuba is Chuba again, and I think that's going to be a big difference from the first meeting.
Yeah, the other thing that I'm wondering about is, the emotion and the vibe, because, sometimes, the moment can overwhelm, and we've got a team that wasn't maybe thinking about doing something like this maybe a couple years ago, and now it's here.
What you honestly worry about is like this big win over the Rams, the biggest win for the Panthers in like 8 regular seasons, and then you just have to not play the next week. So like, how do you carry that momentum? But I think for the Panthers and being in that locker room the last 2 days, Vanessa, is there's just a rejuvenation.
It's good.
If you're a professional football player, you got to wait till week 14 to hit the bye. A couple of them told us when we saw the schedule come out last spring, we were like, week 14? Are you serious? But when they got there and players that were banged up were able to get healthy, everybody was kind of able to wrap their heads around a crazy up and down season and maybe get away for a bit. And now be able to really focus on this last NFL teams and and coaches, including Dave Canales, like to look at the season in quarters, even though it's not, like if you're an OCD math person, it's not like totally even quarters right now because it's 17 games. But they view this as this is their like playoff before the playoffs. These 4 games starting this Sunday at the Saints. So it lets them kind of like reframe that and get focused for these 4 games in this crucial stretch.
Now, I guess the other thing I was kind of curious about, you talked about the different scenarios, that you're looking, and there's like a lot of different combinations. I mean, is that foiled a bit by, I'm just looking at the rest of the schedule for the season and all of like the divisional matchups that are happening.
They're back. The NFL likes to
really
backload.
Stacked.
The NFL is going to backload divisional matchups towards the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season. Everybody's in a division game in week 18, and that allows the NFL after week 17 to say, which one do we want to put on Sunday Night Football on NBC? Pick us, right? It definitely could come down to that if it's down to the division between Carolina and Tampa Bay. So there are all these other games. You've got to play the Seahawks. Obviously, you're playing the Saints, who are eliminated. But really for Carolina, it is and can be as simple as beat Tampa Bay twice, you're in. Like, that's all you have to do, because that would, even if you had the same record, that first tiebreaker is head-to-head matchups. So beat them twice, and you're in. But yes, it can get way more convoluted, including like if there's a tie tonight, which nobody wants to see.
I was going to ask you, and I cannot take credit for this question. Brad Panovich, as we were wrapping up, our 6 o'clock newscast or our 5 o'clock newscast coming out of sports, and he's like, "Well, what if there's a tie?"
Yeah. So right. So yes, there are ties in pro football, unfortunately. So yes, I did the math. And it would go to division record if Tampa Bay ties Atlanta tonight, and Carolina still beats New Orleans, and Carolina beats Tampa Bay week 16. Tie tonight for Tampa is just as good as them losing. Carolina would still have 4 division wins. Bucks couldn't get past 3. If Tampa ties Atlanta tonight, Carolina beats New Orleans, but Tampa Bay beats Carolina at Bank of America Stadium in week 16. Carolina would still have to win week 18, but even though it would be a split with the Bucks, because the Bucks have a tie instead of that extra win, their winning percentage in the division would be less at 3-2-1 than Carolina would have at 4-2. So you got to beat the Saints. You got to beat the Bucks at least once if they tie or lose tonight.
Now, I want to envision this gloriousness happening. What does that look like? They're here, right? They end up playing?
The Panthers would, because the wild card route is not going to happen for a team from the NFC South, because you're just not going to have a good enough record. Wild cards go to the best, the second place teams in divisions with the best records. You're looking at the NFC North, the NFC West. Those divisions are stacked this year. But division winners, and that's how you'd have to get in the playoffs, you are guaranteed that home playoff game. So if Carolina is able to win the division, and I know they only have a 30% chance to get in the playoffs, but it just feels like you feel momentum, and you feel maybe the Bucks backsliding a bit, even though they have a lead right now against an Atlanta team that's been eliminated. It feels like it's more than a 30% chance, and the mathematicians out there will say you can't have a feels like number, but it just does. But yes, they would host that first playoff game on Wild Card weekend. Obviously, wouldn't get the bye. It's too late for a number like that for a win total, but that would be amazing. I mean, Carolina hasn't hosted a home playoff game since they went to the Super Bowl in the 2015 season. Their last home playoff game was the NFC Championship against the Arizona Cardinals. So to even host a game would be phenomenal. It would be probably exceeding expectations inside the building, and I think from the fan base as well. And it would be the first playoff game for Carolina since 2017, when they had to go on the road to New Orleans in a wild card game that it's really never had a shot in. It still was tight at the end, but they were banged up, especially at receiver. So it would feel amazing, and you felt some life breathed back into the bank with the 2 minutes to go against the Rams, when the Panthers were just kneeling it out against the best team in the NFL at the time, and folks who stayed in through the pouring rain were chanting "Keep pounding." Like, as small as that sounds, it's been a long time since you felt something like that in that building. Hints of it last year, but no real shot at the playoffs. This year, it's like, okay, we're in this. and we can win this and host a playoff game. It's more than anybody could have asked for before the season, I think.
That is perfect timing, Nick, because we are done here on Live
I was
Impact.
wondering. I was probably
more
up against
to come.
it.
7 seconds left. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah.
Much more of this conversation, of course, in the coming days, weeks, etc.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll turn you over to our next hour programming, folks. Thanks so much for being with us. Exciting stuff.